opener or just us?
Yeah, I can always drop that on. I just wanted to kind of get us. The reason I did that before was to kind of get us in the sense of
In the mood.
show. Yeah, in the
Okay.
mood, right?
Well, okay. So I do have a couple questions that I would
Okay.
love to know the answer to. So I was thinking a lot about like communication and like what we're doing now is we have computers and screens and cameras and we're able to talk to each other in two completely different cities,
Mm,
which I think is such a blessing in so many ways.
right.
But growing up for you, if you didn't have a phone, how would you have to like send a pigeon to your friend's house to, be like, hey, you want to play outside? Like what would that look like for you?
Well, believe it or not, Alexander Graham Bell predated me by a couple of years, so we always. I don't remember not having a phone.
Okay.
Um, my grandmother's house, because she had a like a boarding house. She actually had a payphone in the, we called it the hallway. It was kind of, it was like it was an old 2-story house that at one time was a very cool house, and it had a parlor, and you'd come in off the porch into the main entry room, and in that room she had a payphone where all the different guys that stayed there could use the phone. So, but at our house we had the dial up phone, that had you would dial it and go back and then you dial another number.
Okay.
And
Now, would
yeah,
you still, I'm going back to like, for some reason, like I Live Lucy, how they would talk
mm.
to, what was that lady called? They'd be in the room and they would like connect it.
Yeah, with a operator, you mean
Yes.
it
Okay.
would
So
plug
would
into.
you be able just to call somebody straight up or would it have to go to an operator and they connect you?
Yeah, no, at our house, we would call directly to another person.
Okay.
Where my where your Gigi, your grandmother, um, great grandmother, where your great grandmother grew up, when we would go visit there, they had a couple of people that had party lines on their. They would have a phone on their wall, kind of looked like what we used to have as a payphone, but they would pick it up and they would just, there'd be somebody that would answer, an operator that would answer, and they would just ask for a certain number, and then but also when they would pick it up, somebody else may be talking because they would share a line. We
Oh, I
never.
would think I would love that. That's where I would be
Yeah, you'd spend
all
all
the
your time
time.
listening. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I think in those circumstances, people knew a lot more about their neighbors than their neighbors knew they knew about them.
I
But
love that.
but no, we didn't have. We had you pick up the phone. You had a dial tone. Uh, we had we had numbers that weren't just straight numbers. They would everybody had an area. It wasn't, we didn't have area codes, but it would be like capital, or which would be CA, and then 4 or 5 numbers, and then you'd have different Underwood, different prefixes that you would remember what your number was. And ours was Oxford,
Okay.
so it'd be OX, and on the dial of the phone you would dial the O and the X, which were, there were numbers that corresponded to that, and then you would dial the other 4 numbers or whatever. So
How
yeah, that was
interesting.
that was that was about as far as we went. Then
Okay.
later on, we got a push button phone, which was a big deal. That was to, instead of having to dial the phone, you could actually just punch a couple of buttons. And
Now, is that one still like connected to the wall or was it wireless?
landlines, yeah, I
Okay.
never. The idea of a phone that was not connected was, came along pretty late in life for
Okay.
us. Yeah, it would start with a phone that would have a kind of be anchored somewhere, and then it would be a battery handheld set that you could walk around the house some, but you were always tethered to that landline that came into the house, until of course cell phones came along. So
Okay.
yeah.
Now, I know like on a smartphone or, or an iPad or whatever, we have games that we play and all of that fun stuff. All of our entertainment basically comes from it. So other than like watching TV, what would like a fun activity be for you growing up?
Well, to tie back into the phone, there was there was there was no sense of who was on the line. The phone would ring and you wouldn't know who it was, and there was no identifier like you have now. You can look down and see who's calling.
Mhm.
So one of the very rude games that some of my friends and I would play, not very often, but you could call up people and say rude things to them, and they wouldn't know who it was. So it was like that was a game that my folks weren't aware, or if they had been, they would have been very upset with me playing. Until I saw a movie, Allie Grace, about these two girls that were playing something like that, and they would call people up, and they would in the movie they said, "I saw what you did, and I know who you are." And in the movie, this guy had just killed somebody, and so
Okay.
he started looking for the girls. Well, I was about 11 when I saw that movie. I never made any prank calls. That ended my prank call days. But uh, go back. I'm sorry, I'm old. Go back to your question about. I got all off
Well,
on
that
the
was
prank
a
phone
fun
call.
activity. I mean, even for us growing up, it was star 67 is what you would do to make sure that it said no caller ID. And
Oh,
so that was like our little cheat code that we could do.
oh,
You
okay,
can't do that anymore, but
okay.
we would. I mean, growing up, we'd get our home phone and you'd dial the number and then star 67 after it, and you would call like a fast food restaurant and try and order clothes or what. I mean, that was like the funniest thing to us, to be like,
Right.
do you have tank tops? And you're like calling Panda Express or something, and you hang up like, oh my gosh, we got him. It was so
Uh,
silly. But oh yeah, or you could call your friends and like yell in the phone and then hang up, and they're like, who was that? It's just silly stuff. It's harmless, but
yeah.
it was like a sense of thrill. We did the same thing.
Isn't that
um
funny? That's so
it,
funny that it transcends generations like that. I love that.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know how people would do it today. Maybe like you get an app or something to give you a different phone number. I don't know. I feel like it would be more complicated. But
Well,
oh
there's a
yeah, that
whole
was so
world.
fun.
There's a whole world that does that now, that are filled with scammers and hackers that are just horrible people. That
Yeah.
there's nothing funny about it. Especially when you're my age, you feel like you're just always under attack from somebody trying to get to you some way. It's no, there's no fun in that one.
Yeah, it's not as lighthearted
No,
anymore
it's
for
not
sure.
at all. No.
For sure. Well, what would be like your like outside activities you would do with your friends, or what would that look like?
Well, I was real blessed that we had these two vacant lots next door to our house, and my father built a basketball goal, kind of a freestanding basketball goal, and all my friends, all guy friends, we didn't even know any girls after school. Everybody that came to the lot, what we called, we played every sport. Depending on the season, we would play a sport on the lots, and then these guys came and dumped uh, dirt on the second half of the lot, and it made these little mounds, these little hills, and and by the time it matured to have some grass on it, we would use it as a bicycle racetrack. And we would jump over these little mounds, and
Oh
it was so
wow.
much fun. And then later on, we uh, we were into golf when I was like in the seventh grade. We started playing golf, and we actually built a 9-hole golf course on the two little lots, and we used plastic golf balls, and it got to be a big deal. We played tournaments, and but one year, one summer, we went on vacation, and some of the guys from high schools would come over there, and from the golf teams, they would say they were going to Lot Crest, which is what we called it, and uh, and they would come over there and play, and we had tournaments and things like I said. But when we were gone, some guys came over and started using real golf balls, and they were hitting them over the garage apartment in the house across the street from us, breaking out a few windows. So I had to shut down Lot Crest at that time. That
It's
was
kind of like the golf version of Sandlot almost,
yeah,
like a
yeah. It
little.
was
I love
yes,
that.
very much so. And we were very much a sandlot. I mean, that's kind of what that was really the spirit of this whole thing, was very much that way, where we played, we played every kind of sport there was, including, on our driveway we had these skates that had keys to them. You stuck them on your shoes, and we even tried to play hockey, which was tough on a southern kid like me. We didn't know much about hockey, so we would knock a few things around trying to play hockey on roller skates a little bit. So
How fun. Now, do you feel like you had to use your imagination, especially being like a really young kid, way more than kids do today? Like, were you really an imagination station kid?
yeah, probably more than I should have been.
Okay.
I was being an only child. Well, one, I was kind of forced to. The first 4 years of my life, I lived almost in downtown Houston. I was the only kid I knew. I didn't go to church, and so it was just kind of me up till I was 4 years old, and uh, and then I started. But I had a lot. I had actually had a couple of imaginary friends, and we didn't see shrinks a lot back then, so I kind of skated past all that. But I had, I played Cowboys, a lot longer than I should have. I had a pretty big imagination. Yeah, that was
I think that's an
never a
amazing
problem.
thing. I think that's just a great thing for kids. I remember growing up, my sister and I mean, we would play all sorts of, we would set up a grocery store in, our game room upstairs and just pretend like we're grocery shopping and somebody would be the cashier. Or there was this one game where we used an exercise bike actually that was in our game room, and we put a blanket over it and we were like hiding from wolves. I mean, it was like the craziest stuff. Or we would go outside. We had walkie talkies with our neighbors, and so we would walkie talkie them, be like, do y'all want to go play? And we would eat lunch outside, and we'd have like set up a little umbrella, and we would play Animal Planet with any animals that we found. And we would like direct what they were doing and be like, oh, and now the lizard's walking across the sidewalk. Will he ever make it? And so I appreciate having to come up and make the stories in my head. I think it's such a healthy thing to do that I don't know if kids today really have that, because they don't have to.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I just feel like God puts that imagination in us. I think that, when you're connected to God the creator, and the creator just spoke things, and he spoke the world into existence. uh God's imagination, I think in our imaginations, it's one of the ways that we connect to to God, and and the Holy Spirit and all that, because it's it's so much about the Comforter coming in your imagination. And of course, imagination can be a terrible thing. You can use it for all kind of, your mind can be focused on all kind of terrible things. And mine certainly has had terrible thoughts, and in my head, and sometimes it's gone in places that, I'm not sure they're movies I want to share with Jesus, that are going through my head. But yeah, I think you're so right, Allie Grace, that imagination's such a gift, I believe. And I don't know with AI. Of course, there's so many confusing things about AI and what it will do for you. That is there room with AI for your own personal imagination, and will that somehow go away, or be thwarted, or
Or
kids going to have?
feed those bad imaginary,
Yeah,
you can kind of make anything that you want.
yeah,
And yeah, I know, I feel like it is a really big slippery slope, and that's a whole conversation
yeah,
too.
right.
But kind of one of my last questions, you
Mm.
grew up with way less screens than I did, right? Gosh, I don't remember how old I was, because I remember my dad had a BlackBerry and my mom had, I think it was like a slide phone. And then gosh, I don't know exactly how old I was whenever the iPhone came out, but so I kind of had that cool transition time
Sure.
of
Yeah.
going without and then with. Um, but obviously now that's kind of where everything is. If you had the opportunity, would you go back to like a zero technology world and not have any of the screens that we have today and just kind of start from square one, or would you keep it how it is?
Well, you know, in thinking of that, I I didn't I was so impacted by technology from a little bitty kid. I didn't see a television until I was 3 years old, and a guy brought one to our house for the weekend, and I actually saw a television, and I thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen, and I had this relationship with television from that point on. He took it away, but then it wasn't long before we had our own 21-inch television, which was a big deal. We were lower middle class family in a little house, a little one-story house, but we had a 21-inch black and white television, and I would uh, I would start my Saturday morning about this far from the TV, uh, waiting for it to come on, and then the rest of my life, I watched too much television when I should have been doing homework and other things, and then by the time I was 16, I was working with screens and in the studio doing films, and then and then by the time I was 18, I was working at a television station, working with screens all the time, and then I was editing TV shows and things before long. So all my life, technology's been a really big part of my life, and the idea of going back without it, I don't know how far back I'd have to go. I mean, I don't know if you consider radio back in the 40s and
I think
30s.
more like social media, smartphones. I guess that's kind of the big one, like being able to have the world in your pocket.
Yeah, I don't know. Loneliness is such a big deal to so many people, especially my age, and if they've lost their loved ones and they're alone. The idea of connecting, unplugging things from anybody, I I have a hard time imagining that. I see all the I see all the bad effects. I see all the isolation it causes. I know that, going to being with people in a church environment, in a movie environment, in a live theater environment, I just believe to my toes that that's so healthy. I think being in a dark room by yourself playing on a screen is not our best. I don't believe that's the best we can offer ourselves and others. And, but at the same time, to take it away, I don't know. I think I don't know.
It's a hard thing to think
It
about,
is. It's very
because
hard.
it makes stuff like this possible, right? You and I are
Yeah,
able to communicate at
that's
any
true.
time. And
Yeah,
so for me, I think I would keep like a landline phone, and
really.
even like a cell phone that isn't a smartphone. So I would probably get, is
Wow.
it called like a Nokia, is that what they were called? um I would get that. I mean, I'm really close to just getting a flip phone again. I really am. I would be so okay with unplugging and being
Wow.
almost forced to go see people in person. I think for me that would help my isolation and my doom
Mm,
scrolling and all of that fun stuff that you can get sucked into. I would so much rather experience things in person and be able to talk to people face to face rather than calling them or anything like that. I just love it. I think face to face contact is so good for me, and being outside and being around people is so good. And technology for me can really, I'm so okay being by myself because I have all these thousands of people that I can look at and
right.
watch videos and stuff.
Right.
I would unplug in a minute. I personally would.
I love that. I find that incredibly encouraging. And wow, I love that, Allie Grace, that you would even entertain that thought. And I think that's so healthy. I hope that becomes viral. That would be a that would be a
It is a thing right now. A lot of
is it?
people my age are getting a lot of people are it's like a Barbie flip phone. It's a pink flip phone. I literally have it in my Amazon cart. I'm so close to doing it. And you can put your SD card in it, and so you can still get like calls and you can text people, but there's no social media on it.
Wow.
I would love it. I really would. I see so many fun, positive things through social media. I really do. I've learned so much through it. I get to see people do all sorts of things. I think there's so many positives. I also think there's so many negatives
Yeah.
too, just like with anything. And so I don't know. I would just love to be done with it and just be like, no, if you need to hang out, go outside, hang out, like go meet up with your friends. Like I would love it.
Well, I think one of the things that I would love this show to do is to kind of follow that process, especially with you as we come together and doing things more technically, but also go apart and do things more on our own like that. I think for just humankind, I think that's a very encouraging thought. And to hear you say that there are others out there that are sort of thinking that same thing, I understand the motivation, but I think it's incredibly encouraging. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
telling me that.
I mean, I think it's a big thing today. People are like, "Oh, I need to go touch grass," right? Because you realize you're like, "Oh my gosh, I have been inside or I have not communicated. Like, I need to go touch grass." Is that even a thought that ever crossed your mind growing up? Like, "Oh, I need to get grounded and like go touch some grass."
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Um,
I would not have guessed that. I would have been
really?
like, in my head, you were like, "Yeah, I was always touching grass," like I was always outside.
No. Well, yeah. I mean, the concept of I got to get out of here and go. I mean, from the time I was a child, not just in my working years, when you're working a lot, and when I would work long, long hours, oftentimes till maybe 2 in the morning sometimes. But the idea that I needed to stop and go do something, for me, I would play tennis. I was real blessed to have a couple of tennis buddies, and we would get out. And I back then I used to think hitting something was, you'd get you'd get some aggression out by hitting something with it, whether it was a golf ball or a baseball or a tennis ball. But also, yeah, just getting out in the fresh air. My mom, I'd be in watching TV, a kid, and she would force me to go outside and but I always enjoyed it. I never went out, outdoors, even on my own, that I didn't just, love nature. Just the whole idea of things that are, that God's world out there is so beautiful, and there's so many kind of miraculous things. Whether you're just laying on the grass, looking up at clouds and trying to imagine what that cloud looks like, or all the things that you get from just being outside is just you really can recharge your batteries. I think,
I
and I
agree.
and I think we so need to be in touch with nature in that way. I think that's again. I think that's something God puts in us. That He created that nature, and I think it's you know. One time I thought that the whole thing about Adam and Eve from God's point of view, God made all this stuff on different days, and then He creates on the sixth day. He creates Adam and then Eve, and I think, He was creating audience. I think He wanted somebody. Why make all this wonderful stuff and not have somebody to look at it and appreciate it and say, "Wow, God, that's really cool," And I think when we go out into nature and we appreciate those things, I think we're becoming that audience that God just made us to be.
Mhm.
Good stuff.
Love it.
So fun talking to you, kiddo.
It's always fun talking to you too.
I like the way this show's going. I hope other people join us in liking it, and maybe they'll have comments too. Maybe some of the stuff we've talked about has surprised them or encouraged them or made them think of things, and they'll write down the comments for us.
I would love to hear if anyone watching would be willing to turn off the phones and the technology and go back, and why or why not. I would love to hear those stories.
Yeah, the only problem is that we won't know that they're doing it because they won't be seeing our show because they've turned it on.
They're like, you're right, I should turn off technology.
Wait,
not yet, guys. Stay for a little bit longer, not yet.
Turn off everything else, but watch Granddad and Me. Come back to Granddad and Me.
Keep this on. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, this has been great fun. You take care.
You too.
Have a wonderful week, and I look forward to the next time we can do this together. Okay? Love you.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Great stuff, Allie Grace.
That was fun.
It was fun. It was just great fun. Thank you for that. I don't know. Yeah.